Apologies if you tried to watch this video yesterday, but today YouTube decided to remove the original upload of the video, which was completely out of line in my opinion. Now their claim is that I violated their community guidelines on child safety, specifically claiming that we have zero tolerance for predatory behavior on YouTube. Content that sexualizes minors in any way is not allowed on YouTube. Now, I checked the full policy and I am extremely confident that I did not break any of these guidelines with my reporting. Specifically, the sort of content that breaks the rules is content that endangers the emotional and physical well-being of a minor who is under 18, and that content breaching this policy should be reported to the police. Now, unfortunately, Celeste is no longer with us. Rest in peace to her, and she is the victim in the David case. Now, the victim in this case was 13 and at the time many of these messages were sent, but I believe that in context, this should be allowed. My reporting on the text messages that this despicable alleged groomer David sent to her before allegedly murdering her does not endanger her. If anything, it's a warning to the wider community of the tactics that groomers are using in the modern day on social media. Now, this policy does state that you cannot post sexually explicit content involving minors, specifically anything including even minor nudity. But I believe I did not violate these guidelines because I simply just read notes from my notebook that I made whilst I was inside the courthouse in the courtroom attending the hearing. And I was even very careful about rephrasing anything that was overtly sexual to tone it down from what was actually said in the courtroom that would have been offensive. And furthermore, the same policy page states that the discussion of these themes is allowed under educational, documentary, scientific, and artistic contexts, or an ESDA exception as it's known on YouTube. Now, I've successfully argued for ESDA exceptions on many videos before this case, and I thought this would have been absolutely no different. This video was quite clearly an educational and journalistic piece where I made it clear that I was documenting a real legal case concerning a minor who was not in immediate danger and that the reporting didn't violate any of the child safety policies. Despite all of this, however, my appeal was immediately rejected and the strike warning on my account still stands. And after this, I was directed to take a training course on child safety. This was a questionnaire that made it very clear that documentary and journalistic content is allowed to include content that violates the community guidelines when it's a documentary marked as not suitable for kids, which all of my content is marked as. Now, I personally don't believe that a real person even reviewed my video or the context of it, and I think that they have improperly labeled me as in violation of the child safety policy. I categorically disagree with YouTube's characterization that my content sexualized a minor out of context or promotes child abuse in any way, or that I engage or promote any sort of predatory behavior. That's false, and it's disgusting, and I've been doing a lot to speak out against that sort of behavior. Now, the purpose of this video is a journalistic piece that documents the legal proceedings against a child predator. The same type of content that you see in predator catching videos all over YouTube day in, day out. Now, discussion of themes against community guidelines is expressly allowed on YouTube under the rules regarding ESDA exceptions. So after giving this whole situation heavy consideration, I've decided to take a huge risk and re-upload this video in full. I personally think it's genuinely important to warn the public about the dangers of online grooming and to document the methods being used and employed by online predators in the modern era. I feel I'm doing this responsibly, and I hope that with some heavy censorship and a lot of caution that this video can remain up publicly. I don't want to say too much and get in trouble, but I just want to say that I'm grateful for all of the support that I've gotten from people who understand my mission and how I operate. And if you've been following me for a while, you'll know I post all of my most important and in-depth breakdowns on my Patreon at patreon.com/traplawross, usually early, extended, and with exclusive content. And I've also decided after this situation today to also use the free section of my Patreon to upload my handwritten notes that I took during the court proceedings to provide everybody with an independent place where I can document and show off the journalistic work that I did in court, somewhere where it's not going to be unjustly censored and available to the public for free. Furthermore, I want to make it very clear that I believe this information is in the public interest, something that YouTube's policy on ESDA content makes clear is completely acceptable, especially when it comes to broadcasting of public hearings. Now, I believe the decision not to allow cameras in the courtroom at the David hearings or trial has made it harder for the public interest to be served in this case. That's exactly why people like me, Lauren Conlin, Mark the Shark, and Taylor Parise, and others have all made the effort to attend the long and difficult days, showing up to the hearings, making notes all day so that we can inform and warn the public. I think YouTube is in the wrong for deciding that this information isn't in the public's interest, ignoring the context of the actual video that I put out out there and suggesting that responsible discussion of the tactics that predators are using on kids today is somehow complicity or positive promotion of child abuse. And unfortunately, the only person who decisions like this actually helps is David, whose team have been working overtime to sweep the facts under the rug, bend the facts into their favor, sway public opinion, and smear the victim and her family. Ironically, during the questionnaire that I had to take following this strike warning, YouTube's child safety quiz, I noticed that it said, before posting content of yourself, your family, or friends, think carefully about whether it might put anyone at risk of danger or negative attention. Ironically, I think the only person who received negative attention from this video was David, his defenders, and his accomplices. I'm not going to give up on pushing the truth out there for the public interest, and I'm never going to be silenced by David, his legal team, his management, his friends, or any social media platform, no matter how hard they try. So I've decided to take the risk, upload the video once again with the following short disclaimer, making it very clear the context of what this reporting is. So I hope that this stays up. I hope that YouTube can see sense, and I hope you can see my heart is in the right place. Thank you for listening, and here's my report. Before I show you today's courthouse video, I need to tell you something so YouTube doesn't punish me. I categorically condemn David's actions and all predatory behavior involving children or adults. This video is educational, documentary, scientific, and artistic content. More specifically, authoritative reporting on a true crime case from a journalistic context. I've personally attended the David preliminary hearings as an accredited reporter, and I'm here to tell you the facts of the case. I'm doing this to inform and protect the public and raise awareness of the tactics and methods used by predators. This video includes no content that violates the advertiser or community guidelines on YouTube, and the purpose of this video is to add context and condemnation to a story in the public interest and to protect the public. I will be reporting basic factual information that I've personally observed while attending the court proceedings as a professional journalist. While this video contains multiple points of view, including the defense attorney's arguments, I wholeheartedly condemn David, his actions, and the actions of any groomer or predator. I'm obliged by YouTube's rules to tell you that you should not imitate the actions of David, and this statement represents a clear and informative discouragement against imitating dangerous or harmful behavior. This video doesn't include any illegal material, instructions on how to carry out a crime, any footage of a criminal or victim while a crime is being committed, and this video categorically does not intend to glorify the crimes or criminals being discussed. I hope that's understood. Now here's the video. That was an intense day at the courthouse. I was at the courthouse at the fourth David hearing. Okay, I've got a little special guest with me right now. But I was at the courthouse for the fourth hearing in a row, back to back. And essentially, we heard in the court basically all of David and Celeste's text messages between them over the course of years. Now, if you saw the update that I did outside of the courthouse earlier on today, you'll see that I kind of broke down, you know, some of the details, some of the backstory. A lot of the other reporters that were in the room have now kind of, you know, given their updates, and a lot of them, the people that were allowed laptops, you know, they were basically writing down, typing out as many things as they possibly could. Now, I had my trusty Tiffany notebook with me, okay? And whilst I was in there, my wrist was damn near on fire. I nearly managed to write down every single text exchange between David and Celeste. And there was like one or two that moved a little bit too fast or were too long for me to write everything out. But I wanted to, in a separate video, basically just go through all of my notes, give you guys just the entire text thread, the entire conversation. I'm just going to read it to you. I'm not going to reproduce it. I'm not going to put it on screen. I've literally just got handwritten notes. I won't show you what's on that page because I've messed up stuff on this page. But I've got my handwritten notes here, and I'm basically just going to go through the entire text exchange. And what you're going to find out is that David is an idiot. Not only is he a despicable PDF file, and I'm not talking about the sort that you download, but he was a dummy. He admitted openly in many back and forth exchanges to have had relations with this minor. She was basically all of these texts, with the exception of a couple that happen after her 14th birthday, which I will tell you when that happens. Pretty much the vast majority of the text messages that I'm going to read you took place when David was 18 and Celeste was 30. That's a fact. That is a fact. That's what happened. Those are the dates. Those are the times. Ain't no David was 16, 17. He was a kid too. Nonsense. He was an adult. She was a minor. That's that. So I'm going to go through absolutely everything with you in this video. And it's just despicable. So the conversation started. Let me give that a caveat. My mistake. The majority of the messages that we saw occurred when she was 13. Now, apparently, they first communicated through iCloud messages in August of 2022. So apparently, they first spoke on the 8th of August, 2022. And that was basically like the first time that they'd actually communicated, at least on iCloud. They were rumored to have been in touch on Discord before then. But that was kind of the first iCloud, iMessage, Apple-based communications that these two had. And that's very important because all of this was provided via Apple, basically. And one of the unfortunate details is there's no way of Apple, and look, any of you criminals out there that want some advice, I guess, there was no way of Apple reproducing emojis or GIFs, or obviously there were images that were included in his iCloud account, but there was really no way of reproducing some of the things. So there are some certain moments where they go back and forth, and it just has a square, well, what I saw in court, just had a square that said OBJ, like object. I don't know if that was an emoji, Giphy, GIF, image, sort of inline image. I don't know, but we didn't get to see those. So if you're a criminal and if you're the next El Chapo and you want to plan all your drug deals and never get caught on iMessage, if you communicate exclusively in emojis or GIFs, apparently the feds ain't able to get hold of those. So that's very interesting. It's been a long day. I'm going to stay hydrated. I'm going to get all of this info over there for you guys, okay? So they first communicated on iCloud-related communication methods on August the 8th, 2022. At the time, Celeste would have only been 11 years old. Now, the last exchange that they ever had was on April the 23rd, 2025, which we now know is the day that she was allegedly murdered. She was saved in the phone as Cel, C-E-L, and that was sort of like a shorthand nickname that he had for Celeste over the course of a lot of their communications. So, in terms of text, they kind of followed, you know, the same sort of, they basically, like, they followed a pattern in their messages, and the messages lined up to the pattern of illegal videos that were found on his phone. I talked to you guys earlier about that in a separate video, and I'm not going to really talk about the existence or description of any of those illegal videos in this video. But what I am going to do is explain to you the text messages between them, and you're going to hear, unfortunately, David making requests for more videos, and basically sort of like this sort of candid conversation between them where they both kind of, you know, commit to basically make more videos together. And again, I don't think there's any argument to be made that she enticed him into it, or that he shouldn't have known better than to communicate with on this basis. But you're going to kind of see that, you know, he's the only adult in this conversation. So this should have never been happening, and she really can't consent to any of these interactions. He, at certain points, tries to kind of like throw his hands up and act like she initiated certain things, but at the end of the day, he allowed these things to happen, and he was dead wrong for allowing any of this to happen. So basically, we kind of saw like a whole bunch of pictures in the court and all that kind of thing, but eventually we got to the texts. And the text begun on November the 25th, 2023. And the context of these is they were referring to the fact that there was discussion of emergency, and there was basically talk of emotions, and it sounds like an took place. And David was getting minute-by-minute updates from Celeste about that taking place and confirming that it happened. And it really just goes to show you how duplicitous he was. He had this girl thinking that they were going to get married, they were going to have kids, they were going to start a family together. And you can just see the manipulation, you know, when he's trying to get what he wants, it's we're getting married, we're going to have a kid. But when he needs that done, he's on the case and he's talking all kinds of reckless different ways. So the first thing that we were shown in court was a message from Celeste to David where she said, currently manifesting my... David replied, did you miss your date? And I as soon as these messages started getting read in court, I noticed that David kind of like quivered his lips. He knew he was cooked, and he knew how bad this was. She said, David replied to her. David replied, said, did you miss your date? And he said, you should start tracking using Flow. Now, this is an app that can be used for tracking periods. I've never used it. I've heard of it before. Not for myself. I've never dated anyone that's used it. I'll be honest with you guys. I think they call it, there's a name for when people use tracking apps as contraception and they have sex sometimes when it's less likely to get you pregnant. It can still happen, and I've always just thought that was nonsense, to be honest with you. If I'm gonna have sorry if it's TMI, but if I'm gonna have relations with someone, I practice very safe sex. If I'm gonna have relations with somebody, it's gonna be with protection. I don't want to have kids. I actually don't want children at all. Currently, as it stands, don't have any children. Don't want them ever. If that changes up, I'll be sure to let people know. But realistically, as it currently stands, don't want kids. Don't fancy the vasectomy, the Black Boy Max special. But what I do know is that it's my responsibility. If I don't want to have children, I should not be having unsafe sex. It's very, very simple. And, you know, maybe I'm more mature than most people. You hear all these stories of guys, oh, it just doesn't feel as good. Grow up. It should have been his responsibility, but he was trying to get her on the Flow app. All right, that's what we had from David. He's trying to get her on the Flow app. So after that, he would later follow up with her. He said, I know that's why you should start tracking. It's ovulation week. It's important. I just need to make sure you're on top of your... Why wasn't this piece of shit on top of his just putting a condom on when he's going to do this act? At the very least, excuse my, I'm quite frustrated today, and like as time settled down, like it's just made me more and more irritated with the stuff that I've seen in court. But it's absolutely your responsibility. The idea that he's telling this you need to be on top of get the Flow app is absurd to me. So she would reply, and she said, I'm not having it. And after that message was read in court, Beth Silverman, the deputy district attorney, paused and said, can you just remind everybody how old she was at the time of this message being delivered? And the detective said, David continued by sending a hyperlink to the Flow app. So he's doing marketing. Who knows? He might have even had a promo code. This guy was really out here sending. He sent the Apple Store the Apple Store link to the Flow app. Couldn't have just put a condom on, right? And she replied, and if I'm not having it. David replied, damn near impossible. We both didn't. This guy is a moron. That's not how it works. I'm sorry if anybody is not very didn't take sex ed or skip sex ed in school. You both know doesn't necessarily mean you can't get pregnant. Certainly, as far as I'm aware, I don't think the woman needs to finish for the pregnancy to happen. And even for the man, you can release that material without finishing. And Celeste, she obviously trusted him and believed him. She saw him as in a position of authority. He was older. He was supposed to be more experienced. So she replied to that, yeah, you're right, when he said it was damn near impossible. And he was lying to this girl. He was sending her up the, what's the phrase? Kind of, is it sending her down the river? I don't know. Like, she was basically being lied to by this older man that she trusted. And he's saying it's damn near impossible. We both didn't. What type of grade school sex education is this that this idiot had? Anyway, more texts were released from December the 1st, 2023. And in these messages, David texted her, and this was so dumb because we heard this previous testimony that David had used pseudonyms to order some of these, despicable tools that may well have been used in the attempted or planned disposal and disposal of Celeste's body. David admitted to using the pseudonym that was on some of those packages. He sent her a message, said, I have different names and aliases and I go by Travion Davis here. All my packages and everything. He said that on December the 1st, 2023. He didn't think when he allegedly murdered this girl and ordered items to try and dispose of the body, he didn't think, I'm on iMessages telling the girl that this is an alias I use. And he said, all my packages and everything. I go by Travion Davis here. And Celeste replied, said, please be joking. David said, nah. So a little while later on December the 20th, 2023, about 1:47 p.m., they had another conversation. David messaged saying, this was fun as hell. And then David said, this was fun as hell. Or that was fun as hell. TS was fun as hell. Celeste replied to that, do I take the... So now we know what TS means. This was fun as hell. Celeste replies, do I take the... So we know what's going on. And David replies to that, this is so irritating. Take it sober, too. If you don't feel any symptoms tomorrow, just take it tomorrow. You have 72 hours. He said, take it sober, too. So you're out here partying, getting drunk, having... This was fun. And you talk about take it sober. So the following day on December the 21st, 2023, at 6:30 p.m., David said, why not one band when you deserves 10? One band is $1,000. I don't know what the context of this conversation is. This is all they showed. But clearly, maybe she was asking. Maybe she was saying, can I get a band? Can I get $1,000? I need some money for this. I need some money for that. I don't know. But he said, why not one band when you deserve 10? And do you know what she replied? She said 10. What, because you f***ed me 10 times? That's what she said to him. And he replied to that. And he said, it was 6 actually, baby. And she said, how you know? And again, the deputy DA paused the courtroom, said, how old is she when this message was sent? Still. So the following year, not a whole year later, but, two weeks or so later into the next year, on January the 8th, 2024, but Celeste is still at this point. David texted her. He said, I'm sorry again, baby. I didn't ever want to put you through this. And Celeste replied, no, it's okay. Don't worry. Both of us. Oh, sorry. She said, no, it's okay. Don't worry. Both of us aren't able to take care of it. And bear in mind, this is just a couple of months where after David told this, it's damn near impossible if we both didn't. Disgusting. So after Celeste says to David, no, it's okay, don't worry, both of us aren't able to take care of it, David replied, I know, but still. Then Celeste replied, don't worry about it, my love. And David replied, you're so much stronger than me, baby. I love you. Celeste replied back to that, I love you more, my love. It's okay. Don't worry. Neither of us are capable of watching and taking care of. And David replied to that, yeah, I know. A few hours passed. David replies to her once again, says, when are you going to get it done? Celeste says 2 days. David says, also, my mum always told me to ask this if I was in this situation. It's mine, right? And Celeste says, of course, David. And David says, yeah, I know, baby. I just have to ask so I don't feel like a complete for her. He's talking about his mum. Now, his mum comes up later in a much more damning context, but I just found this very irritating because I'm sorry, Colleen Burke. I'm sorry, Colleen Burke. Hopefully no one sends this to her, but clearly you failed as a mother. And this despicable excuse of a son that you've got here, the only good advice that he had in the relationship front was, if you knock up a girl, make sure you ask if it's yours. People want to point the finger at Celeste's parents. Not deserved at all. They've been through enough, and I've seen them in court. They're definitely going through it. People are acting like they just don't care. They care, and they tried to stop this monster. But David's mother, Colleen Burke, really means to tell that's the best advice that you had for your despicable, disgusting pain of an excuse of a son who allegedly has murdered a little and grew years in, years out. That was the only advice you had. He said, my mum always told me if I was in this situation, ask, is it mine, right? And then for this absolute dirtbag to respond, look, I know, baby, I just have to ask so I don't feel like a complete for her. If you thought you was a complete by knocking up your girlfriend and not asking whether or not it was yours, what is this state of affairs that his life has become? If you thought that was a complete, I can't even fathom what monumental failure of a person you are. I'm really irritated. This trial has actually just taken a real toll on me emotionally, to be honest with you guys. So there might be some venom in this video, but these text messages are disgusting. So that was the advice that we got from Supermom Colleen Burke. Make sure when you check it's yours. Now, I'm going to be real with you. The fact that he would even think that, you know, I've got to ask her that it's mine because she might be... She ain't really got nothing else going on other than school. What do you mean I got to make sure that it's yours? My mum told me to make sure that it's yours. Give me a break. So the day after that, on January the 9th, David basically said, wait, the appointment's at 9, no? And Celeste replied, 9:30, and then posted some kind of emoji that wasn't recovered. David then replied, it should take 45. And then Celeste said, shut the F up. So then about more than 45 minutes later, basically, David sent her another message saying, how did it go? And she just replied with an emoji and followed that up saying, about to be done. And she said like 10 mins probably. 5 minutes after that little exchange, David follows up and he says, I feel like an N-word waiting for test results. This bothered me. This bothered me because I'll be honest with you, people get really riled up when I talk about race. I'm a white guy. It is what it is. I cover a lot of African-American artists, not just from America, but from the UK and other countries too. And I've covered plenty of white people, people of different races. Doesn't matter to me, right? I care about what you've done, what art you've made, what crimes you've committed, what your history is, what your legacy is. I really don't care. It's not a racial thing. But the idea that even David is perpetuating this sort of stereotype, said, I feel like an N-word waiting for test results. That kind of pissed me off because it was almost like, bro, the closest thing to racism that David's experienced is people in articles calling him a rapper when he's a singer, right? And they're assuming because he's African-American, all right, let's say what it is. Assuming because he's black, he's a rapper. A black guy making music, people are presumptuous and call him a rapper. That's low-key that's a little tinge of racism. It's not serious racism. He's not being denied entry to somewhere because he's black, but them assuming because he makes music and he's black that he's a rapper, it's a little racist. But for him to be in the message when he's talking about this girlfriend of his, and he's waiting for her to get the, and he says, I feel like an N-word waiting for test results. This guy's already sunk so low, he is already in hell, even though he's still alive. But for even just things like that, it's just like, bro, you just making just a mockery of yourself, your background. Like, for you to even say that, and you guys can just analyze that however you want. He said, I feel like an N-word waiting for test results. He said, I'm like waiting to hear about the process and I keep asking LMAO. He's trying to make a joke out of it, saying, you know, making a joke, using the N-word and kind of talking about a stereotype of like, a girl, and I'm leaving her to deal with the consequences or whatever. And then he kind of like redirects and he's like, oh, I'm just waiting to hear about the process. I'm just really interested and intrigued. You, sir, are not interested or intrigued. You are trying to you're trying to make sure that your crime is covered up. You've committed a crime and there is a crime inside that person right now. You trying to find out if they asked any questions. You trying to find out if she told them anything about you. You're trying to cover your own ass to the detriment of this. Why wasn't you there with her? Because it's a crime. All right? So a little bit of time passes and they're just having some chit chat. And we don't hear any more from the court about what happened with that actual at the time. But Celeste replied completely unrelated, I believe on the same day or sort of as part of the same thread. And she said, do you think I can put concealer on the tattoo yet? She's 13 still. And obviously she's got the David tattoo and then they've both got the matching shush tattoos. And she's talking about, I need to be able, do you think it's like enough time has passed from me getting the tattoo that I can put concealer on it to cover it up? And we didn't hear a reply from that. Now, the following, the following month, on February the 10th, 2024, we kind of see like a series of exchanges. And again, the court were reminded that she was at this point. So the first of note that was brought up was on February the 11th. It was around 11:28 in the morning. And David basically said to her, I can't believe this. David said to her, I see you on the 14th for V-Day. 15th is the operation. And Celeste replied, KK. Now, I was in the court. I was thinking, operation? Like, is he getting surgery? Is she getting surgery? Is he getting her no way is he getting her some implants of some sort. That's crazy. But no. This operation was them moving in together. Right? So David basically replied when she said KK, all right, and she wasn't enthusiastic about the meeting up for Valentine's Day on the 14th and the 15th being the operation. She just said KK, and he said WTF? What the fuck? And then she replied, she said, Operation Awesome, gonna be so hard. So it transpired that they had a plan called Operation Awesome, where he was basically planning on using his security guard that was apparently living with him, or at some point lived with them, from her family home in Lake Elsinore, to pull up at a stop sign and act like they were just stopping for a routine stop sign, and coordinate and plan for Celeste to run out of her home with her bags packed and the help of a privately hired security guard from her home and move her into this grown adult David's house, 18 years old at the time. This is days before the police came to his property. Okay? So she said, Operation Awesome going to be so hard. Operation Awesome. What kind of kiddie bullshit is this that this creep is doing? It's disgraceful. She said, hard as... This killed me. David said, hard as in hard to do or hard as in full Balenciaga fit hard? She said, I don't know what to bring. David then replied in all caps, so like shouting, we've been over this for weeks. And then replied in normal text, anything that you use or can't replace immediately, you bring. Clothes you like, makeup, jewelry, shoes. Celeste then replied in all caps. She was clapping back. As I've said before, she was like a little firecracker. She wasn't always putting up with his She wasn't scared of him, even then. So she replied all caps, shouting back. She said, this kind of didn't make sense. So this is a little bit weird. She basically replied and she said, how? Oh, okay. She basically said, how am I going to bring it, though? I don't have anything. And then he replied in all caps, I'm giving you 2 different duffel bags when I see you. And then he replied, I don't even get half of what I want to bring in the bag. So she said, can't even get half of what I want to bring in that bag, and I can't carry it. I'm too small. So in response to this, all right, David said for Valentine's Day or for OA, which is Operation Awesome. And Celeste said for OA. I'm talking about Operation Awesome. It's too much. I won't say the name of the security guard. I wrote it down. Crazy. David replied and said, do you want me and security guard to hide out somewhere and help you bring your stuff to the car? And Celeste replied, OMG, no, that's so embarrassing, dude. And David replied to that and said, baby, this is the most important day of your life next to the wedding. And you're worried about being embarrassed. And David said, we're not live streaming N-word. We're beating our phones back and getting, she said we're beating our phones. This didn't make sense. I don't know if I wrote this down wrong, but he basically said something like, we're not live streaming N-word. We beating our phones and beating our backs and getting the F out of there. Don't overthink it. Stop overcomplicating it. And then Celeste replied, STFU, shut the f up. David replied, I'm serious. Celeste said, text you later, I'm cleaning. And David said, okay, love you. About to go finish the phone stuff and add service. And that basically was a separate cell phone that David had given to Celeste. So he was saying, I need to go to the phone store. I need to go get the phone service set up. I'm getting you a secret phone. All right. So before I move on, I just want to reiterate how disgusting and disgraceful this is. So he said, do you want me and my private security guard, another grown man, to hide outside of your family's home, to hide out somewhere and help you bring the bag to your car? So you're offering yourself and another grown man who's employed to help you by Mogul Vision, who hired the security guard. You are basically saying, would you like us to hide out near your family home in the cover of darkness and just sneak around and help you bring your bags to the car so that we can you? And she's saying this is embarrassing. And he had the gall to say, this is the most important day of your life next to the wedding. This is you talking about this is the most important day of your life that I'm going to from your family home. And people want to blame the parents and say, what were they doing? They weren't doing anything. David had a private security guard that was willing to camp out overnight outside their home. And you want to talk about what were the parents doing? This guy had an actual private hired security guard. God forbid the family didn't try and intervene and fight David's private security to stop their daughter being is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I actually wish the parents, I mean, you know, I understand why the parents felt like they needed to leave the court, but I wonder if they're even aware of some of these details. So David basically got back to her and they were speaking in the afternoon on Valentine's Day, February the 14th, 2024. And, you know, this was around the time that she went missing, obviously, officially, and there were the wanted posters around for her, or the missing posters for her. But David kind of had a back and forth with her about the night. About the plans for Operation Stop Sign. Sorry, Operation Awesome. David said, so explain to me what you want to do. I'll tell security. He said the name, but I'm not going to say the name. He said, I'll tell security, stop at the stop sign, and you run out and make, and you make multiple trips out to the car. Celeste said, hell no, just tell him, get to the stop sign. David then says, so how are you going to carry the heavy bag? Celeste said, it's not going to be heavy if it's that small. David said, no, you're supposed to use the duffel bag I got you and what you used last time. What you used last time, if that's bigger, just use that. And Celeste said, I literally don't have anything to pack with. She sent an emoji that's unknown, and she said, she's just said, I got a tote bag. David said, why you ain't tell me N-word? And that was all caps. So she said, why you ain't tell me N-word? And she says, I did. David said, third Birkin then, f*** it. So he's joking like, oh, I guess I'll get you another Birkin. I'll get you a Birkin bag, right? And then he said, which was super creepy, he said, but garbage bag method. So I guess garbage bag method is just like throw everything in there, throw everything into a garbage bag and just bring that. Celeste said no. David said, you have too much stuff for that little ass duffel bag. Why didn't you ask for a bigger bag? And this doesn't make any sense. He said you can't dog or tuck that little ass. I think it meant to say you can't pack that little ass bag. But I think it was a typo because when I wrote it, I was like, wait, what? So a little bit more time goes on, and sort of later on in the afternoon, around 2:38 p.m., they continue talking. Celeste messages David and says, it fit. David basically gets back and says, me and my security are going to be there at 11:50 p.m. So just before midnight, under the cover of darkness, him and his private security guard are going to pull up to their family home in Lake Elsinore. And bear in mind, we heard rumors that Celeste's mother was locking her in the room and sleeping in the same room with her so she couldn't sneak out. When people say, what were the parents doing? The parents were doing their best job, and this guy was pulling up with private security in his Tesla in the middle of the night and doing Operation Awesome, doing a military-style operation based on timing. How is a parent supposed to contend with that? They can't even keep this girl from having a phone. He's given her secret phones, and they're communicating on different phones. And apparently this other phone that David gave her was never found. So after that, Celeste then, a little bit more time went by, and I guess this was just right before it happened. Celeste texted David saying, hey. David said, hey, my love. Asked you 1,000 times, LMAO. You ready for this? And Celeste said, yeah. And that was the last that we heard of it. Obviously, she went missing. The police came to his house. We saw the body cam right at the start of these hearings. And it was very, very clear that, you know, he had something to hide. Now, it would have been a different story if we'd have heard all of that stuff, and then we would have seen this body cam footage of him lying to the police, being like, oh, I never really heard of her. Like, you know, I think she told me she was 18, but they'd be saying she'd seen the missing poster. So Operation Awesome has gone down, and then the cops are going to his house. All right, and we're seeing that on body cam. That's crazy. So a bunch of months pass by now. Now we're in June of 2024. And she's still years old, but David is now 19 years old at this point in the year. She's a few months away from her birthday, and that was her last birthday she was alive for. So on the 9th of June at 11:52 p.m., Celeste would message David, and this is going to get a little bit gross and a little bit graphic, and I'm going to be careful about what I say and what I read. But basically, Celeste would message David and say, what you doing? And then follow up saying, the following day at 8 a.m., all right, Celeste said, I'm going to shower right now. So I'm feeling like they're probably in the same property, sending texts inside the house in different rooms, in the big-ass house in Hollywood Hills, in different rooms. That's what I'm deducing from this. So she said, I'm going to shower right now. David replies, said, bet, wash your for real, since it was itchy last night. You know what that means. There's some kind of emoji that we couldn't see, or a GIF, and then David replied, clapping them cheeks. Now, I think you can imagine what they had going on, but it's not good. Later on, Celeste would contact David separately and basically say, what if the first didn't work? David said you would have a little time passed, and then Celeste would message David on a separate occasion. I didn't get the exact date, but it was between June the 11th and between the 10th and the 13th. So I didn't get the exact date, but it would be between June and 10th and 13th. Celeste messaged David and said, and I'm assuming they're sort of cohabiting at this point, or at least they're spending a lot of time together. Celeste says, we need to record everything we do for when we don't see each other. David replied, for real, for real. Celeste said, you deserve the best in the world. David said, I love you. You deserve better. He said, I miss you. We record in everything like we used to. And bear in mind, this testimony is coming after they've confirmed 48 videos had been found on his phone. So a couple days later, on June the 13th, oh, actually, my bad. This was all on the 13th. So those last messages were on the 13th. Now, this continues into the day on the 13th. Celeste says, I sent you a on Instagram. Open it tomorrow. David said, I just opened it. and Will jumped. And apparently Will, according to the detective, is a nickname for his thing, his wiener. In the UK, they call it a willy. I don't know if you ever heard that. People call it a willy. Maybe it's a UKism. They did go to the UK. I don't know. Celeste sent him another message saying, "We need a makeout vid. We only had kisses." And then David replied, "Dead ass. No more pics. More vids." Then David sent another message to her saying, "August 11th to the 17th, Vegas, baby. Booked. Trump Hotel." And you know what Celeste replied to his dumbass? Celeste said, "How much did your dumbass pay to stay at the Trump Hotel?" So I ain't gonna lie, he tricking on her, talking about bags and all this other stuff you're gonna see. He's talking about, yeah, book the hotel for the Trump Hotel. She ain't like, "Yeah, baby, thank you." She like, "How much did your dumbass pay?" This guy was a dumb trick, even when he's messing with the, which is just embarrassing for him. And I'm delighted to see that. A little bit of time passes by, and David sent another message. You know what he said? He said, "I can't wait to move in together without cops, baby. I'll see you more and take you out every day." And she said, "I miss you so much." And then he replied, "You're going to be with me everywhere." Now, what's crazy about that is it's like he's talking about, "Oh, I can't wait to move in together without cops." How on earth did this guy think, after the cops had already been to his house and the cops were, "This is a missing operation, awesome with your security"? How did you think you could just be on your phone talking about, "Oh, I can't wait to move in with this cops a bit and I'm going to take you out every day"? This guy is actually disconnected from reality, if you ask me. So a little bit of time passed, and David sent a message saying, 4-year vacation, slide back. This is what he was saying that they were going to do. He was saying, this kind of out of nowhere, like a gap of time passes. I don't know what message was sent in between. But he said, 4-year vacation, slide back, get the rest of your documents, and we get married in Italy and dip out the country. So he's basically saying, get your passport and we're going to dip out the country and go get married in Italy. This is get married in Italy to a. And then Celeste just replied, "David." And then David replied, "LMFAO. After all these OAs, we can finally make it happen without all these police and posters." So I've just looked up what OAs meant, and they didn't define that in court, and I didn't really get a clear explanation. I'm not actually finding that out. Maybe someone can let me know in the comments, but he said, after all these OAs, we can finally make it happen without all these police and posters. So a little bit of time would pass, and then Celeste would message him again saying, "I got dem symptoms. I don't like this." David would reply, "It's okay, LMAO. We don't know for sure." Celeste would reply, "What if the first..." I can't even believe it. "What if the first didn't work?" And David replied, "You would have a LMAO. You had hella periods. But nah, first gone." And she said, "I hope." Talking about first gone. How many times did they go through this? It's not clear. They didn't at any point during the proceedings say that, like, hello. They didn't at any point during the proceedings say, like, "Oh, there was confirmed 3. It felt like there was at least 2 talked about. Oh, okay. I see what you got going on here. Okay. It's not time for that. It's not time. Okay. All right. You are interrupting my journalism, sir. Thank you. He still wants it. Don't try it again. We're not. It's not time for that. Don't jump up. Don't do it. No. Right. Okay. We're gonna have to tuck these into the notebook so you cannot see them as prey. Thank you. Sorry. I hope that's not inappropriate. This is just me living my life, and my cat is in the room. I leave my door open when I'm recording because he gets sad otherwise. Anyway, guys, sorry. So from there, actually, we did have a break. So that actually was an appropriate time for this cute little guy to interrupt me. But basically, after that, there was a break. That's when I kind of did a couple of little updates on some of the details that I had heard for you guys. You probably saw that on my social media, on shorts and TikToks and whatever. But after we came back from the break, we just got straight back into the testimony. So from there, David sent her a message, a longer-ish message, and it was once again about the issue. He said, "Let's let this be our last one until we have the real one. If you're actually pregnant, if we have twins, cool. We wanted two. Anything more, and it's going to be adoption. I'm going to read that to you again just so you fully understand what nonsense this guy is saying to this girl. He's selling her a dream and lying to her, in my opinion. She replies, but what if they're the same gender? And David said, damn, didn't think of that. He's selling a dream. Then he said, we have a clear vision of how we want to build our family, right? We have a clear vision of how we want to build our family, right? She posted some kind of emoji that wasn't seen. And you know what he said after that? He said, I don't want your getting crazy loose. And he said, and I also got another business credit card approved for you to use. So whatever you buy is a tax write-off in LA. Clothes, food, and whatever you want, you can buy. He is selling her a dream. Isn't it convenient? And for him to say that I don't want your getting crazy loose is disgusting. But this is but after that, he's dropping, oh, by the way, I got you a business card. You can buy anything you want. Just get that done. That's the vibe that he's giving off. So, ironically, after she basically is told that she can have a business credit card and buy whatever she wants as a tax write-off, which sounds to me like the IRS maybe should look into David and Mogul Vision if that's what was going on. But she replies like the female symbol. So I guess that's saved. It wasn't an emoji. It was like, I guess like you can type that as a figure into a phone and into like key codes. You know, it's like, you know, you've got all the 26 letters of the alphabet and dollar signs and things like that can actually be reproduced by the Apple's keyboard. So I guess the sort of female sex symbol, you know, the opposite of like what Austin Powers used to wear on a chain. That's the best reference point I can even think of on the spot. But basically, that is essentially what she replies. So she just sends the female sex symbol back to him saying that you can have an unlimited company credit card on the company dime. And then she just sends another message saying jewelry, smiley face. So she low-key taking him for all he's got. And I respect it, to be honest. She treating him like a diabolical trick. And, you know, he's just a sucker and a simp that's just going for it with this absolute clown. If she wasn't, this would be low-key embarrassing. But anyway, it's even worse and despicable and illegal, and you know, we're gonna see how that all works out for him. Now after that, David sends her another message, and again, it's like bear in mind he's given her all this spiel. Oh, you're gonna have, you know, we're gonna have kids, and we're gonna have twins, and we're gonna just get. And you're gonna have an unlimited credit card and jewelry, and then he follows up. He says, I just don't want no posters, and you've got to be able to get on planes. I can pay you and give you a credit card so you don't have to worry about the money part. Now, when he says I can pay you, I'm not going to lie, that sounded a little bit like he was talking about giving her a job, putting her on the payroll. It wasn't I can send you money, I can send you a band, I can send you 10 bands. It was, he's licking me. It was, I can pay you. You can get on planes now. Was he employing her? Was Mogul Vision employing her? He said, we don't have to worry about the money part. I just don't want no posters. And you've got to be able to get on planes. So full-blown international, definitely interstate. She went to Texas, but full-blown international took her to London. Absolutely insane. So they would continue their discourse on June the 14th, 2024 at 10:21 p.m. When Celeste would say, pic might look cute in there though. And if you remember, I told you earlier that she basically took a picture that was almost like, imagine like you taking a pic. Imagine I'm taking a pic of my cat right now, and then I'm holding a bottle of Plan B in front of him. Like, you know what I'm gonna do? Pretend this hand sanitizer is Plan B, and pretend my lovely cat is is David. All right. Imagine the hand sanitizer is Plan B, and the cat is David. She's posting we saw in court a picture like this. Can you see that? Let me turn the brightness down. That might be a problem. I just want to illustrate this just very obviously. I'm gonna get it in focus. It's gonna be worth it. Hang on. See that? Behind the scenes now. Okay. So imagine that's Plan B and that's David, right? There you go. There's your little. Thank you. You came in handy. You worked for me. Now I'm going to put you on the payroll. So imagine that. All right. That's an image that we're shown earlier on this image of this plan B, along with a bunch of selfies of them two together, you can see both of their faces bright and clear. Celeste says, I think that plan B pic might look cute in there. So I guess he's doing some kind of like Instagram carousel, or he's doing a post getting her advice. And David says, oh yeah, send it to me. OMG, dude, our first plan B pic is effing gone. No, OMG, dude, our first plan B video is effing gone. I'm so mad. She says, for real? And David says, unless you have it somewhere. And she says, no. And then she posts an emoji over and over and over again for a whole line. Now, after that, she says, should I add one of these into the post? And then David says, it's between this emoji or this emoji. Unfortunately, we don't get to see what they are. And then she said, or this because someone in the background too. It's a girl's name. I don't know who. But he said it's between this or this, two different emojis, or this because blank in the background too. And then Celeste replied, pick plan B, the blurry one though. And we did see that plan B image a few different times from different angles, and one of them was blurrier than others. So I guess, you know, she on this thing of like, it's cool aesthetic to show the more blurry version of the picture. But the fact that he even considered posting up a picture of the plan B next to him, I don't even know if that got posted. I don't know if that was something that circulated on the Reddit or something. But after that, David said, I want to repost. She said, I want to repost and post about you type of vibe. So basically it's like he wants to be able to post, but she can't be in it. And bear in mind, we saw these other images going around social media of like her with her arm around David, or her with her arm in the frame, or her with her face covered up. He wanted to post her. He wanted to show her off. This was kind of part of his whole little deceit and thing that he had going on with her, where he basically like, he couldn't show that she was a, but he wanted to tease and put clues out there and show her. And she said, oh, you can't see my hair there. It's red. I don't know if that was like, you can't see my hair's there, or if it was like, you can't see my hair there, but it's red. I'm going to have to go and do my research into this, because she basically said, I'm going to look it up real quick. Okay. So I actually wrote down two names, that were mentioned in the court. And I was thinking, I swear I've heard one of these mentioned in previous posts on Reddit, but I've just looked up the post I was thinking of, and actually it was not who I thought it was. So these are two names that I hadn't heard before. I thought I'd heard, but I actually hadn't heard. I'm not going to say who they are, but it sounded like they were people that were related to Celeste. So Celeste said, not this person or that person, thinking I got straight hair and red hair. And then David replied, surely they remember what your hands look like. You're recognizable. Now, the context that was given in the courtroom was that it was basically like David saying, I want to be able to repost you, but I'm not sure. Can you see your hair? Can you see your hands? They can remember what your hands look like. Basically, but conspiring to say, I want to post you on my story, but like, if people that are looking for you see your hands, they're going to work out that it's you. That's what was kind of allegedly being discussed there. So a little bit of time passes, and they kind of remind the courtroom that David's 19, Celeste is still at this point. So out of nowhere, later on that month of June, Celeste drops David a text. She says, I miss. David says, I know. Now that I think about it, we got really good at bruh. So a little while after that, on June the 19th at 1:18 a.m., Celeste would then message David and say, your mum know we yet? David would reply, and this is verbatim what was said in the courtroom and in the messages. I wrote this down. I was very careful to write this down exactly, because I was probably paraphrasing earlier. She said, your mum know we yet? David said, word for word, she thinks that's the first thing we're going to do when we see each other. She thinks that's the first thing we're going to do when we see each other. She thinks that's the first thing we're going to do when we see each other. He's 19. He says she thinks that's the first thing we're going to do when we see each other. Now, at some point, right, what's really interesting, not yet, but in a few months' time, so clearly David's mother was aware of Celeste. Clearly there were at least inferences and assumptions about some kind of relationship going on between them. And eventually they would meet. We know that's a fact. I want to know what David's mum was thinking of this. Other than giving him advice, making sure, make sure that you ask her that the baby's yours. If you, I'd love to know what his mother kind of, had to say about all this. So later on, Celeste messages David again, said, I can see you and sleep over. Just don't get me pregnant, please. And David replies, we've done a good job the past few months. This is how I wrote, maybe I wrote this wrong. It said, how last time was the only time pregnant up condom in December. So it sounds like he's basically saying, oh, the last time was the only time you got pregnant recently from the effed up condom. But that sentence was kind of a little bit disjointed. That was exactly how I wrote it down. So I don't know whether, unless I misphrased a little bit of that or it was a typo. So on June the 23rd, 2024, at 10:59 p.m., David messages Celeste and says, rate today out of 10. And Celeste sends back an emoji. Probably one of those emojis that's like a square with the number in it. There's like an emoji for each for numbers, right? And I'm pretty sure there's a 10 emoji. But anyway, sends back an emoji, right? Maybe it was a 1. So 1 out of 10. Weirdo, creep, maybe. So they had a back and forth. Celeste then followed up and said, I love you more. She said, I don't know. David would basically go on to say, I need more hickeys. And Celeste would reply, my are sore. And once again, the court would be reminded of their ages at the time. Now, it's ironic that came up because this picture had been going around for quite some time. Now we know that this is Celeste. All right, red hair. We've seen the unredacted images from the courthouse that basically actually just show him in the car taking these selfies with her. And he had the same hair, various different poses, various different days, but we knew he was in the Tesla kissing on her and taking pictures with her now, okay? And you can see he's got a hickey on his neck. And so we now know that there in messages, David's talking about, I need more hickeys, all right? And then we got the date on that one, all right? So it's all adding up. It's all lining up, all right? This was all real. They was together, and they had hella selfies where you could see her full face. I think we might well have actually seen this full image. And I'm going to say something I forgot to say in my last video. But they actually did say in court that during some of the illegal videos where he was identifiable by the black spot sticker on his head that he was apparently wearing in other pictures taken around the same time. This guy is an idiot, and he's disgusting. Okay? So we saw pictures looked like they were from this same day where we were seeing Celeste. A lot of these pictures that you've seen here, we saw like, clearly they probably took 6 or 7 pictures on this occasion where Celeste appeared just bait-faced in a few of them, all right? So we actually saw the sort of real-life, real-deal accompanying pics that would go along with these sort of teaser pics, including like an even better, higher quality close-up of the engagement ring, etc. But he was often identifiable with this stupid Spot Star sticker on his head. And now some people have called me out for wearing Spot Star stickers. At the end of the day, look, we all get acne, whether you're a diabolical PDF like David or a little internet Reddit nerd like me. Now, the use of the star sticker isn't indicative of anything, but that helped them identify this clown when he was doing despicable stuff, all right? But regardless, who cares about any of that? I'm just pointing out that those spot stars were brought up. They were apparently included in several of the videos, and it was just another little bit of icing on the cake of David being cooked. Anyway, it just gets worse and worse. So David would contact her another time in June 2024. And he would say, let me know if I'm ever too rough. And she says, you're not, but it's... Later that day, apparently that very day, June the 24th, 2024, when those messages had gone back and forth, this lined up with 9 videos that specifically were taken and found on his phone, particularly pictures where was happening. And there were pictures of him with his face next to... The following day at 9 a.m., so the next morning... Celeste would message David, all caps, saying, we fucked, and it hurt, and it hit, SMMMM, so much. And then David replied, he said, nah. Oh no, I think it's like, nah. I remember every time you say ow, who knows? I'm just going to have to say at this point, this video is just, I just want you to know what he said. He said, nah, I remember every time you say ow, last time you didn't say it once. And Celeste replied, I ran to the bathroom. Then David replied, that was just the cap. And so she kind of talking to him in this baby voice. Maybe he liked that. That's like infantilizing kind of way to talk. On July the 9th, 2024 at 1:25 a.m., David messaged her. He said, I'm thinking about your abortion gift. Maybe, I guess another one was coming. She said to him, I want Balenciaga hourglass purse. I've never seen one of these. Let me look that up. So I guess this is the purse that she was looking for, Balenciaga hourglass purse. I've never seen one of these before. It's kind of interesting shape. That's what she wanted. And they retail for $2,900. Some of them are going on the secondary market, an older one for $900. So that's what apparently she was looking to have for her abortion gift. All right? So I lost my page there. My God, this is crazy. So she then said to him, do you ever just sit there and think, we have a whole ass tape? And David replied, a few of them, yep. And Celeste replied, 15, no. Wait, hang on. A few of them, yep. I don't know if I didn't write this right, but I think she said a few of them, yep. No, she did say this. I was really thinking, no way did I write that. That's actually what was said, but no. He said a few of them, yep. And she said 15, no. Or no, 15, no leak it, please. And let me read this sentence again, because I was kind of thinking like, that don't make sense. But now actually I've thought about it, it makes sense. She said, you ever just think we have a whole ass tape? He said, few of them, yep. She said 15, no leak it, please. And he replied, N-word, you don't leak it. That's not a video. Imagine. So the idea that like he murdered her because she was going to expose him, he gave her that ammunition. They're encouraging each other to record this videos, and he's surely at some point he considered the possibility. He's making jokes talking about you don't leak it. So a day after that, on July the 10th, 2024, at 11:21 p.m., sorry, Celeste messaged David and said, does anyone even know we even had sex? And I feel like this is when we're starting to see a sort of suspicious side of her coming out. She's starting to realize, what's this creep got me into? She says, does anyone even know that we even had sex? And then she follows up. She says, then let's get married next year and make the baby simply. And David replied, nope, and I would like to keep it that way before we're married. David then sends her a message saying, can I against the window in Vegas? Celeste says, want to. And David says, want to everywhere. We still ain't. Celeste said, let me on the couch. Celeste says, let me on the couch next time, baby. I'm going to. And then David said, yes, mommy. And then David basically goes on to say, I just need my face. And then she replies, you're always between in general. Then on August the 22nd, 2024 at 3:41 p.m., during this period of time, Celeste went to stay with an aunt in Los Angeles County. And during this time, David sent her a long text. Now, it's unclear whether she was staying there permanently, if she was there on a trip. This is the part where I lost some of the text. It was going so quick. So let me just quickly search and see if another journalist with a laptop typed it out in full in that short period of time, and I'll read the thing in its entirety, but if not, I'll just read you everything I did write down. All right, so I know that I said before that I didn't have time to write down the message and that I couldn't find any other journalist that wrote it. Well, shout out to Taylor Parise. She was in the courthouse and she actually checked her notes and she had typed out the message and she gave me the message today, and I'm going to read it to you guys. It was a long, bitchy message from David, and I'm going to read it to you very carefully, and I don't think there was anything messed up in here. He said, I'm going to just say one thing and leave it on my end. You're enough for me. All I want, all I need. Remember when we started, me, and never forget that you used to come over the house only past 11, and all we would do is... and go on walks. I wanted real dates and I wanted to take you places and spend time with you, but because of your situation, we couldn't do those things. So the time that we spent together was enough for me. I don't need friends. You checked my phone. I tell you, you're everything to me. And I mean that. I don't feel lonely anymore. In my eyes, it's like you constantly want more than me. That's fine. Make friends. Just don't get close to males. We need to stop things and people we used to have. When we were only able to see each other twice a week, that was enough for me, because that was enough for me. And frankly, if it was still like that, it would still be enough for me. That's vaguely what he said. I think maybe there are a couple little words missing here and there. But yeah, that was what he said. Very, very messed up, very bitchy, very just bleeding heart. Okay, I've just done a pretty extensive Google search, and despite other journalists having laptops in the room, I wasn't allowed to have a laptop, right? Like, the first couple of days I was allowed a laptop, somebody did some dumb shit, and then they ruined it for all the independent journalists. So you could only have a laptop if you were mainstream media with all these credentials, okay? Even though I've been trying to get my credentials, and they won't give them to me because I'm a YouTuber. Anyway, that's a separate story. But I wasn't allowed a laptop for these last two and a half days, so I had to write everything out by hand. I'm quite actually disappointed because the whole thing's going on and all I'm hearing is in the back row. You guys, nobody published this long-ass message. I wrote down everything I could apart from this message. I'm actually pissed. All you fuckers were... If I had a laptop, I'd have written down every single word verbatim and told you everything. Shout out to all the other journalists there, but it's this type of thing that pisses me off. You lot don't respect me as a journalist because I'm independent and post on YouTube, but ain't not one of you got the information that you needed to do. None of you was getting busy with the laptop. What the fuck were you typing? What were you typing? You didn't get this. So I'll read you everything that I could, and I'll let you know that there were gaps because it was moving way too quick. It was shown on screen very briefly. The detective read it, and then they moved on. It was gone. I wrote down as much as I could. I don't think I missed anything else other than this long message that basically, while Celeste was staying at her aunt's house in LA, David sent her this big, long, pissed off message. I'll read you as much of it as I can, but I'm so disappointed that nobody had that and put that up there. I think this is so important. If I was allowed a laptop, I would have given you exactly what was said. Anyway. She said, so David sent her this really long moaning message. He said, I'm going to say one last thing and leave it on my end. You're enough for me. All I need. You used to come after 11 p.m. We used to drink and fuck. I missed a little bit of information where he's talking a little bit more about what they used to get up to. Then he says, because of your situation, we couldn't. And I think he was saying we couldn't be together the way that we really wanted to. I was down, but I made the best I could of the situation. He said, you're everything to me. I kind of missed another part after that. I'm just grabbing as much as I could, but a decent amount of it's here. And then he basically said, you only want to send reels to a boy or something. So if I remember correctly, he basically said, and a part of the thing I missed that I can kind of remember, he basically said, I don't talk to anybody else outside of the music industry. I don't talk to other girls. I don't talk about anything other than music and you. I don't need friends. I don't need anything else but you. But you can't like do me the same courtesy. He was kind of getting jealous and then also being like, and I did remember this. I didn't write it down, but I did remember. He said to her, he was like, I've let you go through my phone. You've gone through my phone. You know I've got nothing else going on with other girls. It sounded like she'd maybe accused him of something or suspected something. And he was like, you've been through my phone. You know I've got nothing else going on with other chicks. Yada, 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 yada. Right? You're everything to me. I don't need anyone else. You only want to send... she said, you only want to send reels to... My bad. He didn't say you only want to send reels to a boy. He said, I only want to send reels and gifts to you. And you only. So he basically was sort of inferring that she was talking to other guys. Maybe she was entertaining other guys, talking to other people, sending reels to other people, joking around. Because when you're really locked in with someone, you'd be sending the reels back and forth and things be reminding you of someone and you'd be sending it to them, all right? He said, I only want to send reels to you. I don't do anything with anyone else outside of the music industry. So this is the next bit he said verbatim. He said, you always complain about people who used to be in your life. And he basically explained that, like, you know, you're always complaining about people who used to be in your life. They're not in your life anymore. I don't need to hear about them anymore, basically. It's like what he was saying. And he's like, why are you so focused on the other people? It sounded like he was referring to boys. And she was focused and pissed off and upset about, like, interactions she'd had with guys back in the day, or maybe trauma of other stuff happening with other men. He basically went on to say, like, oh, I'm just warning you, don't get too close to other males. Don't get close to other males. It was weird. It was a mad little jealousy thing. I missed some of what came after that, unfortunately. No one else had it. And then he basically said, we can spend more time together now. I missed the next part. And basically said, back then, when I could only spend 2 nights a week with you, back then that was enough. And so it sounded like he was sort of saying, like, now we can spend more time together, but you're kind of like, it sounded like he was inferring she was, like, entertaining other guys, or even just like chatting to other guys. He was getting jealous. She was getting like suspicious of him, and basically was saying like, now we can spend more time together. Back then, two nights a week were enough. And if it was still like that, it would be enough. But now we're supposed to have all this time together. He doesn't have time for you. It's like, now we can spend more time together. It's a problem. It was just this big, long, rambling text with sort of jealousy. And it kind of was a little bit like, it kind of went one way and then went back the other. I'm sorry I didn't get everything down for that. I tried so hard to just write everything out. They went through this message so fast. I pretty much got everything else. But anyway, after that, okay, I believe just over a week passed. And we got to August the 30th, 2024. So at 2:08 a.m., okay, they had a back and forth. And this is where you can see the relationship's deteriorating. So Celeste texts him and said, realistically, I care about you, but I killed my kid for you, in reference to the abortion. And David replies, has to be the right time with the right complications, talking about having a child. And Celeste replied, I still would have been there for it. So she's regretting not having the child and going through with the abortion that he pushed. And he pushed it hard, as we saw from the previous messages. So David would then go on to say, yeah, selfishly, because also the child would have been mine. So then he's kind of accusing her, saying, well, it's selfish of you to say that you would have kept it and been there for the child, because it was also mine, and like I wasn't trying to be there for it. Basically putting it on her. I don't like the way he's talking to her, to be honest with you. But anyway, she then clapped back and said, David, I have to lie to people. She said, some of my handwriting's getting bad because I was getting tired. She said, David, I have to lie to people. Yeah, she said, David, I have to lie to people and even lie to my kid for the rest of my life. I would do anything to have the kid back. So she's basically saying, like, I've had to lie to my whole family about this abortion. I had to lie to everybody. I even would have to lie to my own kid. It seemed like she was sort of saying, if I went on to have a kid, I would have to lie to that kid about what had happened in the past. And, you know, their relationship, right? She said, I'd do anything to have it back. And she said, I still took a life of an innocent, literal baby. And it's so sad to hear that, because, like, she didn't even realize that she was a literal, innocent baby that had her life taken by the man allegedly in that chat. And so David replied to that when she said, still took the life of an innocent, literal baby. David just said, then let's end that there. And then Celeste replied, I can talk about it without crying. Like, previously she couldn't talk about it without crying. Now she can talk about it, so we can talk about it. We don't have to end it there. That's what was being inferred. Celeste went on to say, I'm willing to talk about my child. So she's talking about the child as if it was there. She said, I'm willing to talk about my child. And David said, I don't like talking when you're upset. And then she replied, how do you feel about it? And David said, I'm saddened by it, more sad of how it was conceived. Outside of marriage and how I pictured it, I can't change it, but I can change for the next child. He's still manipulating her and grooming her. And rather than just being surreal of just like, bro, realistically, he made her have that abortion because he can't get caught rocking with a as bright as day. That's what was going on. But here's the thing. He's manipulating her, saying, she's saying, how are you feeling about it? Like, don't you feel bad about killing this child? Like, he ain't thinking, right, he don't give a shit about that. But he's saying, I'm saddened by it. I'm more sad of how it came about. We weren't married, you know. He's pulling that. It's a whole manipulative relationship. And it was reaffirmed during this period of time that they were still having this adult relationship throughout this period. Now, on her birthday, September the 7th, 2024, she messages him and says, I haven't taken a pregnancy test in a minute. And he said, because you haven't missed a lol. And Celeste replied, I will take one when I see you. But she's basically saying, oh, I haven't taken a test. He's like, yeah, because you haven't missed your period. It's not a big deal. She's like, I'll take one. Clearly, she's got it in her head. And no doubt she's got medical trauma for being sent to have multiple abortions. No shit. But anyway, I made a note that kind of as we got to this later section, David was writing in his notebook loads. And they didn't actually let him take his notes with him. The lawyers had to take his notes away from him at the end because he's not allowed any discovery in his cell. He's probably not even allowed notes about their dirty text messages. But anyway, you know, just under a week after her birthday, when she turns 14, on September the 12th, Celeste messages David and says, I'm scared I haven't got pregnant in a minute, and we f a lot. So, and then David replies, because we have when you're least likely to get pregnant. And she replies, oh, okay, I was scared. And so while this is all going on, David kind of just got his head down. He's writing in his notebook. I don't know if he's doodling, writing notes, just scribbling, writing songs. Who knows. But on September the 22nd, 2024, she messages him again. So am I going to get pregnant? And David says, that's why we sex on days that you're not dating. No. So the detective points out that on September the 28th is when they fly to London. They fly out there for a period of time, 2 weeks, I believe, from September 28th into October. So he is over there with this unaccompanied in London, having his way, doing whatever he wants for 2 weeks. Disgraceful that that was allowed to happen. I don't know what airline he flew with. I've got some questions for the airline, to be honest with you. Actually, we do know. I'm pretty sure we did actually see it. It was. I won't say because I don't want to accidentally defame somebody because I've forgotten the exact airline it was, and I got in trouble for showing that airline ticket, and they still haven't reinstated that video. But that's another story. Want to have a word with that airline for sure. How on earth did they allow that to happen? But anyway, the detective pointed out that they went to London for 2 weeks together. Then they came back, and then they flew out to Texas to meet David's family. And it wasn't entirely clear exactly when that trip took place, but what is clear, it seems like the full breakdown of their relationship kind of happened in the aftermath of that. Might not have been the reason, but it doesn't. I get the impression that that trip, that visit with his family didn't go well. That might be a saving grace for his mother and his family and all of the people around to be like, yo, like he turned up with this and we was like, what the fuck? And we told him break it off, and then eventually that relationship deteriorated rapidly from there. We don't know. But what we do know is that they basically communicated again on November the 7th, 2024. And Celeste messaged David and said, I literally had sex with you daily for almost a year straight. And David replied, you treat this like it's the first breakup. It's the 8th time. So she's sort of saying to him almost like, I don't know about bargaining shit, but she's almost saying to him like, bro, how we breaking up? Like, I guess, you know, during the trip, she said a year straight. I literally had sex with you for almost a year straight every day. And then he's like, you're acting like this is the first breakup. This is the 8th time we've broken up. So some time passes. And then in December of 2024, they have a back and forth where it sounds like they met up and it didn't go well. So Celeste messages David and says, I thought you invited me to your house to cuddle. She says, I was going to go home. We could have just kissed and left it at that. And David replied, you asked if I wanted, and I folded. And then she replied, is a connection? And then David replied, then we stopped and you cried and I told you and then you asked again. Sorry, I held you, and then you asked again. So I'm guessing, I'm inferring that she had said, I want to make a connection. I want to reconnect with you. And then it's like they stopped having sex. She cried. He said, I held you, and then you asked again. And then she said, no, we made out. I was supposed to go home. And then David replies, like this happens every time. David said, like, this happens every time you initiate a kiss and I go with it. You ask me to be your boyfriend. I just follow your lead. Basically confirming that they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but he's blaming her, saying, I follow your lead. You, sir, are a grown man and this is a... And you're talking about you initiate the kiss and I go with it. You ask me to be your boyfriend. I just follow your lead. Grow the f up. You're 19, bro. This is a minor. What are you talking about? So this is actually the final message that was shared between them. On March the 14th, 2025, they were still communicating, still discussing the relationship. So at 8:22 p.m. on that day, Celeste basically texts him and says, we can be online friends, but not in person. I just want to move on. And David just replies, okay. And then Celeste replies, this isn't happening. I feel like we can't be in a balanced relationship. Maybe if things were different, but all we do is hang out. I want more for myself. And David just replied, boundary setting is terrible. And then Celeste replies, it's more than that. And that was the end of the hearing. It was damning stuff. Everything in order, considering the fact that we had heard, you know, we see the body cam of the cops visiting his home. I'm not going to lie to you. Beth Silverman, the DA, she's damn near a storyteller, because the way that she had the evidence unfold day by day, it was almost like, I'm not going to lie, like it was a movie. Like she started off with these clues, the body cam footage, like she started off with this sensational body cam footage, and there was a bit of plausible deniability of like, well, you know, it wasn't outright told to him that she was 13. He thought she was 18. It was like there was a little plausible deniability at the start, but then it's like we then backtracked. It was like a Tarantino film. The last thing that she showed us was all the text messages all the way back, all going back to 2022. The first thing she showed us was the body cam of the cops knocking on the door after the kidnapping. We didn't hear about Operation Awesome until the very last hour. And the first thing we're seeing is body cam footage that's like, you're thinking, oh, it can't be that bad. Now I know about Operation Awesome. I want to go back and see that body cam footage. I can't, because it's the end of the preliminaries and that information is not being made available to the public. But my God, what an absolutely insane experience. What an absolutely wild narrative that Beth Silverman, the Deputy District Attorney, has put together. Kudos to her, all right? Some people weren't feeling her. Some people were feeling like she was a little bit too feisty to certain people. She definitely is a strong woman. I definitely don't want to ever be on the wrong side of a prosecution. And I don't plan to be. I don't plan to commit any crimes whatsoever. But, like, she's not fucking around. David is finished. David is up against an absolute, like... she the real sniper. She the King Von of the courtroom, okay? She is gonna catch his hat for sure. It was insane. So it's almost makes you wish that you could kind of watch it back in reverse and actually experience that back to front, because with the context of those text messages, I wonder if that was the intelligent way of doing it, because it's like those text messages were so damning it would make you just completely presumptuous that he would want to kill her. Obviously, bro, just them texts alone, it's kind of like, yo, he would definitely want to get rid of this girl. She knows too much. She talking about she got 15 tapes on him. It ain't even a case of, oh, she said she was going to expose me. She was going to go on TikTok talking about David's messing with Amaya. She had 15 tapes on deck. Seems like, allegedly, in my opinion, yeah, killed her after all of that, right? We're going to find out. I'm sorry this video was so long, but I wanted to give you guys all of my notes, and I was actually disappointed. Even as I couldn't finish writing that down, I could hear everybody in the back tapping on their laptops, and I was thinking, there's one message that I can't write down. I'm a perfectionist. I'm pissed off with myself I didn't write that message down, but I literally could. My wrist was not strong enough. But anyway, I will continue covering this case, possibly even over the weekend, because there were some very interesting leads that some people have sent to me about details of some very interesting things that have apparently been going on around the case and around David. And I will be sure to keep you guys posted about anything new that I hear. For everybody that says, Trap Law Rush just sits and read Reddit comments, I think this week has proven to you guys otherwise. And maybe next week, we might just have some Reddit comments to go on, and we will be digging into the Reddit. We're not abandoning the Reddits. The Reddits are the hub for the discourse, but I think you can see that I have definitely done the utmost to get the information to you guys as raw, unadulterated, and factual as humanly possible. And I know there are a few Redditors in there too, all right? I know a few Redditors. I know a few of you shit-talking Redditors done see me in person and smiling to my face and acting cool. It's okay, all right? It's okay. I got love for you guys. But all I want to say is that at the end of all this is rest in peace to Celeste Rivas Hernandez. This is all really just documenting history for her to get the justice that she deserves, for her family to get the justice they deserve. It's not about me. It's not about other creators in the courtroom, mainstream media influencers. It's not about the DA and Blair Burke and the vibes and what people are saying and people getting kicked out. All of that's just drama. All of that's secondary to the fact that this poor little girl was taken out of this earth completely wrongfully against the wishes of God, against the wishes of nature, against what should have been a long and fruitful her life that belonged to her. Her life belonged to her. As you see in those texts, David low-key saw her like property. She was an inconvenience to him. She was a real person, all right? She wasn't the contents of a bag in a car. She was a real person, and she was robbed of her life. And this is all about basically not making her whole again, because it's not possible, but basically doing justice and taking everything away from David that he took away from Celeste. And if that comes in the form of a life sentence without the possibility of parole, so be it. If that comes in the form of the death penalty with a needle, so be it too. But it's all about Celeste. Rest in peace to her. And, I saw stuff in that preliminary hearing that I'll never recover from. I've talked about it in other videos, but it was just horrific. And to be honest, like, this is really the first time after like 4 days back to back where I've really been able to just like take a breath, because I've come home from the courthouse every day exhausted and like just so tired and so drained. And when I'm at the courthouse, again, I don't want to make this about me because it's about Celeste, but like when I'm at the courthouse hearing about these things, seeing these images, seeing the images like of her body and the bags and everything, it's just horrific. But there's so much going on. I'm trying so hard to like write notes every day, and it's really tiring, but there's so much going on, and there's so many great people in the courthouse, like other great journalists to talk to, that like I've made really good friends that I hope I can stay friends with for a long time at the courthouse. But like there's so much going on, there's so many people you don't get to think, and it's only in them moments like afterwards when like you get home and all of that's, you know, the courthouse is over, there's no cameras, there's silence, and you're not surrounded by all this stuff going on to distract you. And I just got home and thought about that horrible picture of the body and the limbs all put back together, and just how bad of a state she was in. And I just feel so awful for her family. And like everything that I've witnessed in this trial is the worst stuff I've ever seen. I've seen so many like gang murders and crimes and stuff, but like I've never seen anything so bad. But it's not really like on me to say, oh, I wish I'd never seen that, you know, because like David, like Celeste's family, they've lost their daughter, and that's really what matters. And like, fortunately, they didn't have to look at that shit. But it's like that happened. I had to look at what actually happened, and unfortunately, I think it's good, and I respect Beth Silverman for sparing them the trauma of seeing that. Because that was horrible. And when I got home today, and I could actually just decompress, because all these other days I've got home, I've had so much to do. I've had to film until nighttime, go to bed, wake up. I've barely had a minute to think. But when I got home today and I sat down and I thought about it, and the images of those autopsy pictures and the contents of that bag just flashed, like scarred on my brain, like scarred into my mind. Real trauma. And I just feel so just like, there's just like, I didn't know the world was really that evil, like in real deal life. This isn't a video, this isn't a story, this isn't something that I'm like researching for a story. This is real deal, real life. Someone really did this, and you know, allegedly David's the person that did it. And if he deserves what whoever did it, like, you know, look, justice is going to take place, but like there is no place for anybody. The state that she was left in those pictures, whoever did that should be dead, basically. Death penalty, needle, lethal injection, I don't care what it is, that's what it should be. Because if that was my daughter, if that was my sister, if that was my niece, my nephew, I would do it. So fortunately that's not the case. So rest in peace to Celeste. Massive condolences to her family. Really admire the strength that they had to even turn up and face this fucking dirtbag every day. Utmost respect to them for that. I'm going to leave it there. Sorry if I got emotional at the end, but like, it's been a really hard few days, but it's really not about me. I don't matter in this whole grand scheme of things at all. But I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. And I'm out. I'm definitely going to go and get some rest now. And maybe I'll take a little bit of a break from talking about this. But I appreciate you watching and following, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you.